Well, hi everyone. Finland had its strike of good luck when it came to terrorism, but it seems that now it has ended because in the last few days there has been a series of terrorist attacks in three different countries in Europe. First, there was the Barcelona attack, then almost immediately another attack in Spain, and then today there was this mass stabbing in Turku, Finland, in which 7 people were hospitalized, 1 person was killed, and now I hear that there's also been a stabbing attack in Germany. But now the Finnish police is starting to read the press announcement, so I'll listen to that and translate as well as I can.
Oli ensin kauppatorilla puukottanut ainakin 2 henkilöä, josta toinen oli uhria auttava henkilö. Tekijä on poistunut kauppatorilta kauppiaskatua pitkin Puutorin suuntaan, jossa hän on puukottanut uudelleen useita uhreja. Tämänhetkisen tiedon mukaan tekijä on puukottanut ainakin 8 henkilöä, joista 2 on menehtynyt.
Yeah, so they say the attacker has is known to have stabbed at least 8 people, and some of them were people who came to help the other victims, the previous victims. And I'll keep an ear out for that. They have the Minister of Interior in there to answer questions, and if anything interesting comes up, I'll start translating it. But first of all, I could go through some news from Finland to get as much detail as possible. So let's see. There were some eyewitness testimonies in Ilta-Sanomat, a big newspaper, and they talked about a person who was very seriously injured, and I assume that's the one who now was killed or died in hospital. And I heard a rumor that somebody's throat was cut, but I'm not sure if that's true because I can't find confirmation for that, and there's all sorts of information going around online, as you can imagine. But let's see. Yeah, several people stabbed in Turku, 1 person dead. Police is looking for the suspects. And this all happened a couple of hours ago. So the information is very bits and pieces still. And the eyewitnesses, they talked about foreign-looking men, and that actually fits what we saw in some video footage and photos from the scene. They were like Middle Eastern-looking men, not Black Africans, but North African or Middle Eastern. And they say shots have been fired there, but I assume it's the cops, that because they had shot one of the suspects when he was running away. And at least by now we haven't heard that the suspects would have shot anyone. So most likely this is some sort of out of a spur of the moment terrorist attack, that these people saw what was going on in Barcelona and they got inspired by it, decided to get rowdy, and because they have to use these sort of makeshift terrorist attack weapons, knives and things like that, they luckily didn't get more damage done. Like it's the one good thing about these terrorists, that they plan their attacks so badly that they usually don't get too much damage done, but when they really start planning them, like in the Paris attacks, they can kill a lot of people. And of course, these stabbing attacks and axe attacks and other attacks with sharp objects, they are nothing new because they are the easiest ones to commit. You can easily purchase knives, you can easily purchase axes, and it doesn't take any skill to use one. So often these so-called lone wolves who admire terrorists like ISIS but don't have any connections so that they would be able to get any real weapons, they resort to using these knives and other license-free weapons that are easy to get. And one of the victims was a woman who was pushing a baby on a stroller, and the attacker ran and stabbed her in the back. And out of the 6 victims we know about, who were talked about earlier in the newspapers, 5 were women and 1 was a man. And let's see, there's some eyewitness testimony. One eyewitness says, the man tried to stab all passers-by. One woman had very deep cuts and a lot of blood came gushing out of her. It looked really bad. And they say the situation was very chaotic. There were maybe like 50 or 60 people there, and they all were holding their cell phones and filming the situation. It was embarrassing that they didn't come to help. And one eyewitness says, a man looking foreign looking man stabbed a woman with a baby stroller in the back. He was acting completely senselessly without any warning. And this man was basically just running first in the Puutori, which is a square, and then through the streets, just stabbing anyone who came by. And let's see, watch for a moment this police press announcement to see if there's anything new in there.
Tämä tehtävä tuli meille kello 16.02 ja välittömästi sen jälkeen lähdettiin toimenpiteisiin.
So this has happened 3 hours ago at 4 p.m. the local time.
16.20 eli 20 minuuttia tämän tapahtuman jälkeen tämä kyseinen rikoksesta epäilty oli sitten pysäytetty.
Siellä oleva.
Luonnos-Suomen poliisilaitos.
And what's unclear now is that earlier the cops were talking about several suspects, and now they talk about one, so I'm not sure what's going on, if it's the only one that they have caught, because they shot one of the suspects. And so did you hear, have they said anything? Was it just one guy or several?
Tälläkin hetkellä siinä. Ei ole tässä vaiheessa.
These people seem completely clueless. Like, look at the
minister. The woman with the glasses.
The woman with the glasses is the Minister of Interior, and she's completely clueless. She has no idea. She's completely incompetent. On her watch, migrants have just kept walking in the country. She knows there is a terrorist threat. She has known all along. She knows we have thousands of illegal migrants without any paperwork in the country, and she's just incompetent, completely unable to do anything about anything. And there she now sits, just looking sad and confused, as always. I hope she at least feels responsible for this.
Osa uhreista on leikkaushoidon tarpeessa, osa on ikään kuin ensiavun tarpeessa ja osa ehkä odottaa sitten pääsyä leikkaukseen.
And they say some victims need surgery and some are not so seriously wounded that they can do with some first aid. So the public news network has released this article, and let's see if they say anything. These guys say too that the cops have shot one suspect, but they say one, like there are others. So I assume it's still the current information that there are several attackers, but only one was shot and caught. She says this is very hard for all of us, hard for the victims and their families. We are here to get to the bottom of this. We haven't found out all the details. Investigation is ongoing. And they are going to try to find out if they can find the caught suspect from any registries. They don't know his identity.
It's weird because it's been over 3 hours and that they caught the guy, and well, other officials claim that every asylum seeker that comes to Finland is registered.
Yeah, that they can, and that they can even know the background of each one of these people. And now one of them goes stabbing people, and they have to say they don't know who these people are. And let's see the article by the public news. What are they saying about it?
Which one?
The one, se mitä me tiedämme. Yeah, so they say the same thing, that 8 people have been brought to hospitalized, 3 are in a serious condition, 1 has died, and there still is a police operation going on, and cops have shot 1 suspect. And right when this happened a few hours ago, the cops immediately said it on Twitter to keep out of the downtown area in Turku. And Turku is a pretty large city, so if you are wondering what sort of a city it is, because you most likely haven't heard of it, most foreigners have only heard about Helsinki. Turku is a pretty big city with around, let's see, how many people are living there. I think I would assume around 500,000, but let's see. Yeah, in the downtown area, they have almost 200,000 people. In the nearby areas, including the suburbs, 250,000 more, and in the entire city area, over 300,000 people more. And it's let's see if I can find out, and it's the oldest city in Finland, but the downtown area is the 6th largest city in Finland, but in practice Turku is much larger than, for example, our hometown Oulu, which is the 5th largest city, because Turku has lots of these surrounding areas, suburban areas, that they don't include in the head count when they talk about population. So in practice, Turku is pretty big. And of course, these cities like Turku, they then tend to attract immigration, that they are these centers all new migrants move to at some point, because of course the government tries to sprinkle them around the country evenly. But of course, they don't stick around to these countryside areas. They pretty much immediately, when they can, these migrants move to the closest big city. Over here in the north, it's our hometown Oulu, and in the south, there are a few of these centers like Helsinki, Turku, and Tampere. So, of course, it's a city with its own problems with immigration, as all big cities in Finland. And this news article, they say that the woman who was seriously injured, I assume it means the one who died later in hospital, she was screaming out of her mind when this happened. And some eyewitnesses say, we saw some man there in the square, a white knife flashing in his hand. The knife was in the air, and we realized that he has stabbed somebody. And in this block, all doors were closed for some time because naturally they didn't want the people to go out, and they didn't want attackers to come in. And now they are monitoring also the railway station and the Helsinki airport. I don't know if they are doing that in fear of terrorist attack, or if it's because they fear that some suspects might try to flee the country. But you cannot flee the country without paperwork, and if the first one didn't have any paperwork with him, the rest aren't leaving by flying. So maybe it's because of the security threat. And okay, now it was asked from the cops that can you confirm that there was only one attacker? And they say no, we cannot confirm that there was only one attacker. And
Anteeksi, mä puhuin myllystä ja mä puhuin nyt muista kaupallisista, koska siellä myös lisättiin partiotyötä. Hansa oli lähellä siinä, näin varmasti tapahtui. Ei ole.
now they ask if the situation is over.
Joo, varmaan näin voidaan sanoa, mutta poliisin pitää saada ikään kuin 100% varmuus siitä, että tilanne...
And these cops say it is over to their best knowledge, but they have to, of course, as police officers, make completely sure before they can tell people that it's completely safe to go outside. And I'll check the comment section if there's any questions, because as I said, the information is very bits and pieces, but if there are some questions, I might be able to answer them, because it's difficult to remember everything when you start just making live stream this fast. I've come in late. How is this being spun? Well, it's not been actually spun much, because the Finnish media, it has become pretty wary when it comes to this. Back when there was like Nice terrorist attack and things like that, they tried to go with, oh, but you cannot blame Muslims, you cannot jump to conclusions, maybe it's not terrorism. But then when they got burned pretty embarrassingly a few times with that sort of headlines, now they are pretty wary, and they stick to the facts very strictly. That okay, there was a stabbing. Of course, they don't call it terrorism before the cops say it's terrorism, and that's one thing. The cops haven't yet said that it's terrorism, but they don't even know who the suspect is and how many of the suspects there are. So apparently, they haven't interviewed the suspects yet.
Yeah, so there's a press conference going on. It's live with lots of officials, and but the problem with these press conferences is that they do not say anything interesting. She just says that our police are they are equipped to fight this, but and to prevent this, but it already happened. So.
And how could they prevent that? If somebody decides that they want to go around stabbing people, how are these guys supposed to prevent that? Like, how can they promise that?
And and also the journalists are asking questions, but you cannot hear anything.
And they never get to the point because, first of all, it's these officials who are, as I said, completely incompetent and have no idea what they're doing. And like, you can see from these guys that they are looking scared, that they are very nervous about this. And then we have the left-wing media. They're asking questions, and of course, they don't ask anything relevant.
Yeah, the politician admitted that the guy who was caught is foreign looking, but is it Japanese or Swiss or Swedish? We do not have that information.
Yeah, the foreign looking, that's an interesting piece. And about the attack in Germany, I now checked out what's going on in there. And in Wuppertal, Elberfeld, there was a stabbing attack, and one person was killed in there too. And we saw what was it CNN had to say about this Finnish attack, but they didn't know much. Like they didn't seem to be too up to date about things, so they didn't really have much to say other than that there was a stabbing in Finland, and that's that.
The foreign media is faster than the Finnish police. They say that there's 2 dead. No.
And if you look at the video of the arrest of the suspect, the one police managed to shoot, he looks pretty dark in the video, and that's what the eyewitnesses say too, that they were this.
But there are several arrested because there's the one guy that they hold on the street, and then there's the one that they took in the unmarked car.
Yeah.
There are at least 2 different guys that were arrested. But we do not get this information from this press conference, but from videos that have appeared in the social media.
Yeah, and that's the problem with the Finnish police, that they always complain that there are so much like unsubstantiated rumors going around when something happens, but they don't inform people. Like they can sometimes wait for days before they make their first press release about something. So they are creating those rumors by not telling people what's going on.
So this is the thing in Germany that happened. There's not much information about that, but we'll focus on the Finnish thing.
And I'm just now watching, seeing, because there's some new video out there.
Here's our Prime Minister.
Like these are real tweets from him. This isn't a joke or anything.
Kaksi oli se meidän tilannekeskustieto.
Yksi menee nyt on sairaalassa. En kentälle enkä siihen ota kantaa.
So there's one who was dead on the marketplace, and then the other died in hospital.
Yeah, I started thinking with the image in the article you had over there that, or was it here that, but anyway, in the foreign media, they showed a photo of someone in a body bag in the square. And I started thinking, well, if there's someone died in the hospital and one already in the square, then there must be 2.
And so there's this video, and then there's the other, when you remember.
Yeah. Do you have those on your laptop?
The videos, yeah.
Yeah, we could show those.
Tutkinnan selvittelyä sen osalta. Tapahtumasta on hyvin vähän aikaa kulunut ja meidän tiedotuslinjaamme tietenkin kuuluu se, että kun kerrotaan, niin kerrotaan ne faktat.
Okay, now the Finnish media is saying it too, that 2 people have died. And let's see.
Kerätä kaikki se mahdollinen.
So the man on the right there seems to be the leading doctor or the manager in the local hospital, and that they had a big alarm there. 8 victims, 3 of whom are now in the ER. And of course, the Interior Minister Risikko said she's so sorry for the victims and their families, and like that's the best they can do. Like that's what we pay this woman like 5 number figures every month to do. There's nothing else she can get done. Okay, and now my laptop jammed. I have to restart it, but if you could find the video from there so we could show our viewers something from the scene. Because it's a bit difficult for them to find this stuff online because, first of all, Finnish is such a rare language that a few people can speak it, even that amount that they could read news. And if you try to Google translate the Finnish news, it'll become complete gibberish. Finnish doesn't translate into English with Google Translator. It's completely incomprehensible.
Also, people don't know how to film properly. But here is one arrested guy. But it's not sure if he's related. He's just a suspect.
And did you have the other video? Yeah, the one with the victims.
Se saavutti yleisöä ja siellä oli aika paljon sitten liikennettä, joka liittyi tähän, tai uteliaisuutta tähän liittyy, ja se vähän vaikeutti meidän toimia.
So there's also, you could see there.
Poliisi neuvoi poistumaan Hansakorttelista isosta kauppakeskusta.
But yeah, people should learn how to film stuff.
Siitä ei varmaan täällä odota sanoa. Keskitytään nyt tähän operatiiviseen toimintaan ja siihen. Ja kuten sanottu, niin
these police officers really aren't saying that much. Like, I don't understand why are they holding a press release event if they are unwilling to answer any real questions.
Varmuuden vuoksi tehtiin erilaisia toimenpiteitä sen jälkeen. Nyt on kulunut tästä 3 tuntia, eikä meillä vieläkään ole mitään muuta tekijää tälle kuin tämä yksi tekijä. Ilmeisesti on se. Täyttä varmuutta tästä ei vielä tämän illan aikana pystytä teille kertomaan.
And that sounds pretty scary. They said that when the media keeps hounding them about if there are just one suspect or several, because there is conflicting information about that. On the media, the eyewitnesses talk about several attackers, but the cops only talk about one. So these cops said that, oh, we have made some precautions when this attack happened, and it has been over 3 hours since this started, and there's no information of several attackers. So they basically mean that because nobody has been stabbed since, they assume most likely there aren't other attackers on the loose. So that's their level of information at this moment. And knowing Finnish police, it will take them weeks to get this done, to get any sort of investigation done on this. And of course, the Finnish media simply says that the suspect is a young male.
The guy on the right was the interior minister when the invasion started, and he did nothing. So they are all, those are the responsible guys.
Yeah, and I actually talked to that guy, Petteri Orpo, the former interior minister, and I met him when he was here in Oulu visiting the election village, campaigning for his party. And I went to him and asked him, like, "Hey, Petteri, can I ask you something?" And he said, "Okay." And I said, "Oh, okay, when you kept the borders open, when the 30,000 of these people kept piling in, and now we have thousands of them on the loose, paperless, illegally, and there's crimes, and all of this has happened. Does it still seem like a good idea to you?" And he simply said, "All of these questions have already been answered. I'm not going to talk about this at all." And then he pulled up his zipper, which was clearly a sign to his bodyguards that if I keep hounding him, I'm to be hauled out of there. It was a bit funny.
Well, when this happens in our town, we will be asking ourselves the questions from the police.
Exactly. And they are already with the
Well,
Pray for Turku and the Pray for Finland on Twitter.
There was an axe attack a few years ago here. It happened in January 2011. I don't remember. It was a Somali guy who attacked two Finns in a bar with an axe, and they had a press conference. And I went there, but they were very confused by my questions.
And that's how these people always are. There's, like, now they are looking scared and confused.
Yeah, because we've
the most confident-looking person in the room is the doctor from the local hospital. All of these other scared motherfuckers are just completely clueless. As Adam is asking, was it a Muslim? Of course, we don't know the identity of the suspect, his name and things like that, but he was, eyewitnesses say, foreign looking, so I say yes, we can assume that he was a Muslim.
So there was an English question.
And one Finnish viewer says, they are only scared that refugees will get the blame now. And I think they'll most likely, today the media will, out of politeness, only talk about this attack, but then tomorrow they will move on to talking about how this affects asylum seekers and how asylum seekers and Muslims are the real victims in this, because they have to face some sort of a backlash from this, the notorious backlash that is said to come after every terrorist attacks, but which never actually comes.
Actually, the guy on the right there, he was yesterday on TV telling that the Barcelona attack, it's fine because there's also far right that does exactly the same thing, like in Virginia.
And Sweet Speaks, who has made some super chat messages, says these people should grow a backbone. Exactly.
But also, what will happen in the media, they will make stories about how some of the people who helped
were Muslims.
Yeah.
And that's actually, there's one photo in which there are like two people standing around and they look foreign. So that's, they are already planning on that article. I know it, the left-wing media, that look at these Muslims, they are helping the stabbing attack victims. Just like they did with the London attacks, when they had the one group of anti-terrorism Muslims, they recycled from location to location to make it look as if there were Muslims everywhere protesting terrorism.
Can read this.
Yeah, so one person who was on the scene, a Facebook friend of ours, says that this happened in Turku, and what I saw myself. I stepped out of the bus to the marketplace, and almost immediately when I got to the middle of the square, I heard screaming. It took a moment for me to realize what was going on before I saw a Middle Eastern-looking man stabbing people senselessly. I woke up to the situation only when the terrorist attacker stopped by one young woman, stabbing her 5 to 4 times to her neck, and upper back. After this, me and several other people ran after the terrorist all the way up to Brahe Street, but unfortunately we were unable to stop a single stabbing which occurred on this route 2 or 3 times. In the end, the police shot the terrorist in the leg, and while one patrol was holding him, he apparently had gotten beaten up by the public a bit. And he says that something that caught his eye was that also a lot of the people who helped and a lot of the people who ran after the terrorist were foreign people, while Finnish people were just taking their phones out. And that's actually something that was mentioned in the other eyewitness testimonies too, that Finnish people, the people who saw this event, they were simply taking their phones out and filming the situation instead of helping the victims, which I think is embarrassing to all Finns.
So this will be one big angle in the mainstream media, I predict.
Of course it will be. I say tomorrow. Tomorrow will be the first headlines about that.
Now,
or do you think they can wait until tomorrow? Will it be tonight?
Difficult to say. Now they're interviewing the Minister of Interior. She's in shock.
The Interior Minister says that she passes to the victims her deepest condolences and the condolences from the government, and that this really made her stop, and all the normal platitudes.
Now the guy asks, how are we prepared? She says it's difficult because these attacks are so sneaky. You never know when they happen. And you can't follow everybody. And it's very important to look what's the motive and what was the reason.
As I said, this woman is completely clueless. I don't understand how she got to be a minister.
And when we know the motive, we will be able to change our ways.
For example, when this woman was asked by some nationalists about the illegal migrants in Finland, the asylum seekers or people who come here first as asylum seekers but then get rejected or just disappear from the asylum seeker housing centers and keep on living here illegally.
And the journalist asks, around the world they are talking about soft targets. What do you think about this? And she says, we don't know yet if it's terrorism. And well, she could answer that, yeah, it is. But for her ideology, it's not okay to admit that because we've talked about this for years in Finland. We the racists, we have said that this will happen someday. Well, of course, maybe one explanation will be that the guy was drunk or mentally insane.
Because apparently the one thing these people managed to be honest about is that Islam is a mental disease, because every time a Muslim starts killing people, they say it was because of mental illness. And when they say Allahu Akbar, I did this for Allah, they say, okay, they are mentally ill. Yes, I agree about that much. Yes, Islam is a mental illness. But could you say what we just got a Facebook message from a friend who lives in Turku?
Yeah, I get lots of these. There was the police were searching in a building, and near that building there's a mosque. But there's no. It's difficult to say if it's a guy that just acted alone because of a rejected asylum application, or was it a planned attack, like in Spain yesterday, where and they would be looking for a group of people, but
I wouldn't be surprised if it was an asylum seeker, because I have followed these Facebook meltdowns these asylum seekers keep getting in their left-wing groups, these groups filled with white women who like to take these migrants for pets and take them home because they cannot get a Finnish man. And for example, this one group called Refugee Hospitality Club, it has a lot of them, these white women and migrant men. And one migrant man made a Facebook post in which he says that because his asylum application was rejected, that Finland has no human rights, and do I have to kill my family and myself, that I want to kill my family and things like that. And it was immediately removed from the group, like in a few minutes. But somebody managed to screen cap the post before it was removed. So that's the sort of stuff these asylum seekers actually say, that, okay, I want to start killing people because I didn't get an asylum. I want to kill my family.
So also, since it's been over 3 hours and they still haven't revealed his identity, at least they claim that they do not have his identity. That if it was an asylum seeker, he would be in the his fingerprints would be in the record, so they would find it instantly. But or maybe he hasn't registered himself, or maybe he's a guy that came from Sweden or from Germany or somewhere, and he just came here to commit this act. But it's difficult to say. But this is the level of our officials. They claim that everything is under control. If something happens, they say, okay, it was we could not foresee this. So as long as nothing happens, they say everything is under control. But if something happens, then you can see that they are completely overwhelmed. And so here's an eyewitness interviewed.
What did you see when you were there?
Eli kaikkihan alkoi siitä, että istuttiin siinä ravintolan terassilla ehkä noin 15 metrin päästä siitä tapahtumapaikasta.
They were sitting in front of a restaurant, and it all started.
Luultiin tietysti ehkä, että siinä on nuorten illanvietto kyseessä.
They first thought it was just some rowdy party people with the screaming. Then people started gathering. People were screaming and running away. And that the woman ran into the restaurant and collapsed on the floor crying and saying that somebody had their throat cut in the marketplace. So apparently it's true that there was somebody's throat cut. I mentioned that rumor earlier. And the woman said it was a young, tall, thin male, and that he had dark skin, dark hair, and that he clearly wasn't a natural Finn.
Siinä, että pelastit ehkä se, että päätettiin jäädä itse vielä 5 minuutiksi siihen terassille, kun muuten olisi tie vienyt bussipysäkille just toin paikan läpi. Että järkyttyneet
And she says that she's shocked and she most likely got saved because she decided to stay 5 extra minutes at the restaurant before leaving for bus stop, and the route would have taken her straight to the stabber.
And there's another witness coming up.
Joo, meillä piti olla siis silminnäkijä Hansa-korttelista, mutta puheluyhteys sinne ei toiminut.
It's cancelled.
On nyt seuraavan haastateltavan. Tänne tulee nyt monissa yhteyksissä studioissa nähty.
This is the craziest. She's a researcher. And she always says that okay, there are more dead in car accidents than by terrorists. She's from the University of Helsinki.
Mutta nyt valitettavasti kyllä ollaan sitten vielä siinä tilanteessa, että mitään ei pystytä vahvistamaan. Ja nyt täytyy olla kärsivällisyyttä odottaa, että huhuja nyt liikkuu paljon ja vahvistamatonta tietoa, että kärsivällisyyttä vaan nyt tarvitaan. Tätä varmasti vielä tätä tilannearviota siihen suuntaan vie ja just tämän tyyppistä miehitystä.
It was the same researcher or so-called scientist, social scientist of course, who said that Europe can live with terrorism and that in Finland 10 times more people are killed in homicides every year than the terrorist attacks have killed in Europe in the last 10 years. And she said that in the early 2015, so back then the numbers might have actually been correct, but with the terrorism deaths in Europe being what they are now, then no, definitely there aren't 10 times more homicide victims in Finland. But that's the sort of stuff these so-called social scientists like to say.
She basically says nothing interesting. That it could have been a person who had difficulties finding a gun, so he used a knife. And she says that we still don't know what's the motive, we don't know, blah blah. But when they know it's terrorism, she will just say that okay, fine, it is terrorism, but never mind, it's still it's just a sense of unsafety.
And now I understand why this woman has made the claim that in Finland 10 times more people are killed in homicides than are killed in terrorist attacks in the entire Europe. And there are around or less than 100 homicide victims in Finland per year. And this woman has claimed that there are 1,000 of them. So that's how she got to that number. She's completely wrong about how many homicide victims there are in Finland yearly. And even this mainstream media outlet has corrected her mistake on that. And this social scientist has said that European societies can handle it if terrorist attacks occur every now and then. For example, in 1980s, there was a season in Belgium when deadly attacks happened almost weekly for a longer period of time, and we don't even remember that anymore. So that's what they always pick up, the communist terrorism and the separatist terrorism in, yes, that's exactly what I said. Yeah. And
eilen traaginen päivä Barcelonassa.
now I lost my train of thought.
Kuinka tavallista on, että sellainen...
Yeah, that they always take this up, that there was this Red Army Front and Baader-Meinhof and all these other communist terrorist groups, and that they are separatists, and that means that we shouldn't worry about the Islamic terrorism. But if we didn't have mass immigration, we still wouldn't have Baader-Meinhof and RAF over here as we speak, so we would have almost zero terrorism. And before this mass immigration started, for around 2 decades, it was very peaceful in Europe, and we would still have that peace in here, because no, the communists haven't come back, but now we have Muslims. So it's as if they believe that because at some point in history there also was a period in which people were killed, it means that we shouldn't be concerned about people being killed now for some other reason. That's like basically saying that, okay, since there's cholera in some area, it's completely okay to not give these people vaccines from some other terrible disease, because they already have had that other epidemic in there.
Ja poliisi lisää valmiutta eri puolilla Suomea. Mikä vaikutus tällä on? Pystytäänkö mahdollisia uusia tekoja estämään? Tällaisilla toimilla oikeastaan kaksi niin kuin päävaikutusta.
Now they are asking if these sort of attacks can be prevented in the future.
Jos on niin kuin nytkin epäillään, että onko kaikkia henkilöitä saatu kiinni, vaikka ajatellaan, että sitten todennäköisesti on, niin nämä toimet tehostaa sitten niin kuin havainnointia ja mahdollisesti myöskin sitä, että jos jotain niin kuin jatkoiskuja joissain tilanteissa on, että jos on tapahtumaketjusta, niin ollaan siihen valmistautuneita. Mutta se toinen ihan yhtä tärkeä puoli on se, mikä takia tällaisia ryhdytään yleensä silloin, kun tiedetään, että tapahtuma on ohi, niin on semmoinen turvallisuuden tunteen palauttaminen kansalaisille. Ja tavallaan yhdenlainen viranomaisten viesti, että nyt voidaan niin jatkaa niin perjantai-päivää ja iltaan niin kuin oltiin suunniteltu ja poliisia paikalla.
Ja niin kuin Mika Alkavan kanssa tuossa äsken todettiin, että tuntuu, että Suomen viranomaiset ovat olleet hyvin valmiina tämän tyyppiseen, että tämä ei todellakaan kuulu puun takaa.
Kyllä ja on ollut
Okay, so the first question was now that the police say that they are being more present and visible on the street, what do you think about that? She says that there are two reasons for that. One is to signal that they might still be looking for someone, and the other is to bring back the sense of safety to citizens. And what was the next one? And yeah, they said she said that it seems that the police were very well prepared for this event. Well, I don't see how, because basically it doesn't really differ from any normal stabbing where a guy goes and runs amok with his knife. So how were they prepared? They caught the guy and that's it. Does this require some special preparations?
And somebody tipped me in the comment section about the site to, or the thread at Murhapiste.info, which is a Finnish crime forum, and they often have, for example, information, names, photos that aren't released in the mainstream media. So these threads are often pretty useful, and there one eyewitness says that this eyewitness has seen a foreign man running after 2 young girls. He had caught one and slashed her throat. Somebody had gone to help the girl, and then the helper got stabbed.
siinä oli,
too.
alkuun oli se tieto, että oli suuri operaatio, etsittiin mahdollisia muita tekijöitä. Oli epäselvää, että onko muita ja oli puhetta juuri näistä ihmisistä, jotka ovat tulleet Astaloon.
And it was said in the comment section that somewhere in there should be
epäiltyä tekijää tekemästä lisää tekoja. Mutta tosiaan siinä
a photo of the suspect here somewhere.
Ei ole muita epäillä kuin tätä yhtä henkilöä vain. Tässä on nyt suunnilleen 3.
And maybe you could see if there's questions or anything. So if someone wants some specific information and we can find it.
Someone says increase the volume, but we are if you want to watch the Finnish program, just put it on your TV.
But most viewers aren't speaking Finnish, so
Yeah, we are
it will only bother them if it can be heard on the background.
Yeah, we are just translating the most interesting parts.
I'm trying to find the photo of the suspect over here.
Todennäköisesti tilanne on ohi, mutta se mikä voi sanoa, että poliisi tulee näkymään valtakunnallisesti
There.
päivän ajan, mitä poliisi sanoo.
Okay.
Eli, wait a minute, I'll give you the link so you can share it.
It's which page?
I think it was 3. Yeah, 3. So now we have a photo of the suspect, and yes, he is basically Middle Eastern looking, as the eyewitnesses say. He's lying on the stretcher here after the cops have shot him in the leg.
Tässä tämä erikoislähetys ja me seuraamme tietenkin asiaa myös
Siinä.
lähetyksessämme 8:30 siellä
Scrolla alaspäin.
Turusta. Nyt tältä erää ja tietenkin myös Barcelonan tapahtumista. Nyt tällä erää.
So here is the attacker after being shot by the cops. And I'll see the latest headlines still, and after that maybe we should be...
And now they are ending their special coverage. So.
Yes, and the police confirms what that man said on Facebook, that there were indeed people at the square who tried to help the victims and who were chasing the suspect away. But as the man said online, who was one of the people chasing this suspect, they were unable to do anything. The guy was ahead of them and managed to stab 2 or 3 people more on the way.
Yeah, and there's a video on different outlets claiming that they are shouting Allahu Akbar, but in that video it's probably 4 Finns that are chasing the guy, and they do not scream Allahu Akbar, but they scream in Finnish that watch out and
get out of the square.
Yeah.
So it's not the attackers yelling on the video, it's the cops behind them who yell, and it's not Arabic, it's Finnish what's being said there. But the video, the sound quality is really bad, so we had to listen to it several times too to get the hang of what is being said there. And now there's one headline: terrorism researcher. We have ticking time bombs in Finland. Attacks are possible. They should be deported. And of course, that sort of a headline in the left-wing Finnish media is very weird. You immediately get startled, like, what? How are they letting anyone say this? And then I realized, of course, it's Alan Salehzadeh, who is also a blogger in the same newspaper. And he's a man of Iranian background and a terrorism researcher. So because he's a brown person himself and has Muslim background, even though I don't think he's actively Muslim, he's an atheist or something like that, they let him say stuff they wouldn't let white people say on their media outlets. And of course, the left despises this guy, Salehzadeh, just as much as they despise all the far right, because they consider people like this far right. This Saleh Sadeh criticizes, for example, the uncontrollable immigration, how feminists don't challenge Islam or Islamization in any way, women's rights in Muslim countries. He talks about issues like that. So he's a bit of a nuisance to left-wingers. He isn't like too radical, but radical enough to annoy the leftists.
And this is an article from May, so it's pretty old. Or basically, it's an interview.
Yeah, they just picked that up, updated it now. Most likely because he was completely right. He said attacks are possible. Now it happened. But is there anything more? Does anything come to your mind?
Not really.
I'll try to see if there's anything new in the headlines. Yeah, the suspect is in hospital. So most likely that's the reason they don't know who he is. They haven't got to hear him. He's most likely in surgery if they have shot him in the leg. So they have to wait until he gets out of surgery. Yeah, and the current information still is that 8 people in total were attacked, and 2 of those people have died. 1 on the scene and one later on in the hospital. And they had shot the suspect in the thigh, as you could see in the photo from when he was lying in the ambulance. He has that tie around his thigh, and they usually put that above the injury. And even the mainstream media notices that when the police held its press event, it was even unclear whether there are 6 or 7 victims who are wounded. The cops didn't seem to know. But apparently the entire situation is that 8 people were stabbed, and out of them 2 had died. And 3 are now in intensive care. And the police has raised its, what would you say that?
It's
like they are monitoring the situation countrywide. And yeah, the Prime Minister is saying that the government is keeping a close eye on the situation in Turku and police operation going on in there, and that the government will have a negotiation or a meeting about this later on tonight. And that's how I knew it must be terrorism, because these politicians, they get pretty early briefings. And if they are holding any negotiations, they think it's terrorism. If they thought it was a usual crime, they wouldn't. So that's how I knew, okay, it's terrorism, because the Prime Minister apparently think it's terrorism. And Aleksi Parkkonen asked, where did you get the pic? It's from murha.info, page 3. I tried Googling puukotus Turku and found the page with that. And we have had a decent amount of viewers here, both from Finland and from abroad. And it's nice to see always these regular viewers of my channel. I often see in the comment section, like Charlie and Cats in here. But we actually have to get going tonight. We won't be home for some time. So, and we are already running very late with all of this going on. So maybe we should call it a night for now. And maybe continue when we have more information in a couple of days.
Yeah.
Well, thank you everybody for listening, and I hope that you got at least some information you won't get from the international media. So good night to you all.